Hi everyone! In this video, replacing WorldCat bibliographic records, I'll explain what it means to replace a WorldCat record, when to use replace, and then I'll go over the guidelines for which fields and which records you can edit and replace in WorldCat. So what is replace? Replace is an action you take when you are finished editing a record that saves your changes to the WorldCat record. When you replace a record, your OCLC symbol is automatically added to a subfield D in field 040. So while you are encouraged to edit and replace records to enhance the quality of the WorldCat record, benefiting anyone accessing the record, you also bear some responsibility for making these changes. You can use replace in both Connexion client and in Record Manager. You'll need an OCLC cataloging metadata subscription, and in Record Manager, you'll need to have the cataloging admin or cataloging full role assigned to your login. In Connexion, you'll need a full-level cataloging authorization to replace records. When should you use replace? When you edit a WorldCat record to make corrections, such as fixing typos or incorrect codes, when you make enrichments to the record, such as adding subject headings or formatted contents notes, when you upgrade the encoding level or the level of completeness of the record by adding certain fields, or when you control headings in a record to their respective authority records if available. And these changes should not be just for local use, but they should be appropriate for anyone accessing the WorldCat record. Before you start editing and replacing WorldCat records, we highly recommend that you review the guidelines for experts and bibliographic formats and standards, Chapter 5. In the next few slides, I'll provide a summary of these guidelines. However, it would be best if you also consult the documentation for complete details. First, I want to review some general best practices for replace. So first, do no harm. This means you should never remove correct and accurate information from a record. For example, even if your library doesn't use certain subject headings, there are very likely other libraries accessing the WorldCat record that do use these. Also, never change the basic nature of a WorldCat record. For example, you would not change the format of a WorldCat record. If you don't find a record in WorldCat for the format you have, you should instead create a new WorldCat record. Next, avoid adding local data since the WorldCat record is used by many other institutions. Rather, you can add your local data and then simply export the record without replacing it. And also, be cautious about changing records with a different language of cataloging, which is identified in field 040 subfield B. Records representing the same bibliographic item, but with a different cataloging language, are called parallel records, and are not considered duplicates in WorldCat. So rather than editing and replacing the record, you would be justified in creating a new WorldCat record in your language of cataloging if one doesn't already exist in WorldCat. Next, if in doubt as to whether you should replace a WorldCat record, don't. Be sure to consider the intent of the library that input the record, and consider the data fields in the context of the whole record. And finally, a reminder that when you replace a record, your OCLC symbol is automatically added to a 040 subfield D. So which fields in which records can you edit and replace? With a full-level cataloging authorization or higher, you can make additions and changes to almost all fields in almost all records. But please be aware of the following exceptions. PCC, or Program for Cooperative Cataloging Records, both BibCo and Conser are excluded. PCC records can be identified by codes in the 042 of the record. LC records that are not coded as PCC records are included. CIP records, encoding level 8 records that are coded as PCC can be changed, but the encoding level must remain at 8. Those not coded as PCC can be upgraded. And you cannot edit system-supplied fields. These details can be found in Bib Formats and Standards Chapter 5.2.2. When you edit non-PCC records, you may also upgrade the record to a higher encoding level if you've added certain fields to meet the requirements. The encoding level is a code reflecting the degree of completeness of the cataloging record. OCLC cataloging libraries use the Mark 21 codes of blank for full-level records, 7 for minimal level records, and 3 for abbreviated or brief level records. The encoding level is a fixed field element, part of the leader of the record, and is abbreviated as ELVL in Connexion Client and Record Manager. You can upgrade minimal level records to full level records using the code blank, and you can upgrade abbreviated level records to either minimal level using code 7 or to full level records using code blank. You can review the details for upgrading records on this table at Chapter 5.2.2 in Bib Formats and Standards. So far, we've just looked at the edit and replace capabilities for non-PCC records. There's, however, one exception to this general rule, so I want to briefly explain what you can edit and replace on PCC records. So you may add or edit specific fields on full-level PCC BibCo records if the fields qualify as database enrichment. To see which fields qualify as database enrichment, please see the table in Bib Formats and Standards at Chapter 5.2.3. Remember that this pertains only to PCC BibCo records. That is, records that are created as a part of the PCC BibCo program. BibCo refers to the PCC Monographic Records program. Concert records, which is the PCC Cooperative Online Serials program, are excluded. For example, you can add a 024 standard number if the field is not present, or you can edit a 024 field if the field in the record has a different value for subfield 2. If there are errors that you find on WorldCat records that you can't edit and replace yourself, you can report them by sending an email to bibchange@oclc.org. If you have questions or need additional help, please go to help.oclc.org and click Metadata Services for documentation and training on Connexion Client and Record Manager. You can also click the link at the top right, Contact OCLC Support, to find contact information for support in your region. Thanks for watching.